Chapter on October 6th. And this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on YouTube. Okay. All right. As a way for members and of the public to participate. For those participating via Zoom, which is all of us, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. I will ask that you keep your microphones on mute when you are not speaking. And we will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members. Kelly?
Thank you, Chair. Celeste Adams.
Here.
Thank you. Zach Altman. Lupe Bandin.
Here.
Tanya Ruentan on behalf of Joshua Clark. Vice Mayor Ali Klein.
Here.
Thank you. Christine Ellis. Gary Friedel.
Present.
Thank you. Cindy Garcia.
Present.
Thank you. Laura Guild. Christine Hun McDonald.
Present.
Thank you. Elizabeth Herbert. Sam Hinchy.
Here.
Thank you. Burdetta Hodge. Okay. Marilyn Kasanick.
I'm Melissa Elliott from Marilyn Kasnick.
Thank you, Melissa. Trish Clark.
Present.
Thank you. Sherry Loretano. Okay. Andrew Lefevre. Kevin Mattingly.
Present.
Thank you. Amy Offenberg.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Bridget Peterson.
Present.
Thank you, Mayor. Rachel Sanders. Thought I saw Rachel earlier. No? Okay. Anastasia Stinchfield on behalf of Chris Charlow.
Here.
Thank
Rachel,
you.
I'm here. I'm sorry.
Oh, there you are. Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate it. Thank you, Anastasia. We've got you down as well. Kelly Shore. Melissa Thomas. Brandon Wilson. Chair Anita Norton.
Hi. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is Emily Karen, proxy for Brandon Wilson.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
And I'm here too. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody I missed?
Hi, this is Andy Lefevre. Sorry, I joined a minute late.
Thank you, Andy.
And so Burdetta Hodge, Councilmember Hodge, I think I joined a minute late too.
Thank you, Councilmember Hodge. It's nice to have you here as well. Is there anybody else we oversaw? Okay, I know we do have a couple new members for today. So Chair, I'll let you take it from there. Thank you.
Okay, and with our new members, I know we have Mayor or Vice Mayor Ali Klein from Surprise, and then I don't have my notes. We have who are the other new members, Kelly?
We have Burdetta Hodge. I don't remember if this is Councilmember Hodge's first meeting. She's with City of Tempe.
It's my second.
It is your second. Okay. And we also have Sherry. I don't know.
I'm here. I finally got it to work.
Great. Sherry, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Sherry Loretano, and I'm a council member with the City of Goodyear, and it's really great to be with y'all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We got them all, right? Okay, great. Welcome. Thank you so much. I'm glad for you to join us. And now our next, I do want to mention that Vice Chair Ernst is not feeling well, so she's not with us today. But I trust that she will be fine by the next meeting. Our next item is the call to the audience. This is an opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda, or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. members of the public could submit written comments via the MAG website 1 hour prior to the meeting. Staff, do we have any written comments from the public?
No, Madam Chair, we did not receive any public comments on this item or any other items on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. We'll proceed then with the next agenda item number 3, which is approval of the August 4th minutes. And does any member have any questions on the minutes before we ask for a motion? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion for approval of the August 4th, 2022 minutes?
Madam
Councilmember
Chair,
Hodge,
this is Andy. Oh, go ahead.
Councilmember Hodge, I move to approve the minutes.
Mrs.
All
Andy,
right,
I'll
thank
second.
you. Okay, we have a motion to approve by Verdena Hodge and a second by Councilmember LaFever. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Thank you. All right. And now we will go on to the next agenda item, which is actually updates from our 2 domestic violence work groups. And let's see, the first one, Kelly will do the update for the teen dating violence work group. And then after she does her update on that, then Councilmember Lupe Bandon will do a presentation, a short presentation update on the crisis workforce work group. Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the council. I will keep this brief. The Teen Dating Violence Prevention Work Group is now meeting monthly. It is still open to any other members who might want to join. Just please reach out to me and we can make sure to add you to the agenda. The work group is working closely with Bloom 365, which is a local nonprofit specifically focused on preventing teen dating violence. They already have existing connections with schools and an existing best practice curriculum. There was discussion at the last meeting about securing funding to be able to continue this work and expand it across the region. And we will be working with work group members and others to try to identify possible grants or other funding sources to help expand the work. With that, Madam Chair, I'll give it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions in regard to the teen dating violence work group? Okay, if not, then Councilmember Bandon, can you give us an update on the crisis workforce work group and what's happening with that?
Yes, thank you, Chair Norton. Likewise, this group is now meeting monthly, and you can send your name to Kelly if you're interested in joining the Crisis Workforce Work Group. The first item is the City of Tolleson will be sponsoring our impact video and organizing the shoot. We have 3 advocates lined up to interview, along with a victim witness survivor to introduce the video. We also have the City of Tolleson sponsoring a custom tablecloth and retractable banner to take our show on the road. We also will be working with the Jobs for Arizona Graduate State Coordinator to have a presence at the state conference and at high school JAG groups in Maricopa County. And also we'll be contacting ASU and 2 community colleges about their career days and job fairs to promote to freshman students. So awareness is our #1 goal to begin the work group. So if we have any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
Anyone have any questions for Councilmember Bandon?
Chair Bandon, can I add one bit
Yes.
to the work group? One of the other areas that the work group is looking to promote is the ongoing work by the Maricopa County Community College system on their fast track for individuals looking to work in behavioral health and crisis. And you all may remember that we had Bill Beverly, who's a professor in that program, come and present to the council earlier this year. And he has made a commitment to be a partner to the work group as well to try to promote that work and possibly be able to provide interns to any opportunities that you all may have to help encourage folks to continue to work in this field.
That's great.
Yes, thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. That's correct. And that information that we gather from community colleges is what we will be taking with us on the road. We will be providing that information regarding jobs and education to the persons that we meet out on the road. Thank you.
Councilmember Bandon, I would like to just add also that I'm glad you mentioned the work on the road. We have the video that's going to be ready for this, hopefully by the end of this month, but the ongoing work will be the on the road work. So if anyone on the council is interested in participating, we'll be going to various career days at the colleges and hopefully possibly the schools and elsewhere. So if anyone wants to participate in those, please let Councilmember Bandon and Kelly know about that. Okay, we can use all the boots on the ground in this as possible. So thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
any questions for her on this? No? All right, then we will proceed to agenda item number 5.
Madam
Yes?
Chair, there is
Yes.
there is a question from Vice Mayor Klein.
Vice Mayor Klein. Right. There you go. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yes.
You're not used to seeing me. That's okay. Do we have a connection? I know you mentioned the community colleges, but do we have a contact connection at Ottawa? I'd love to be able to provide some information if Councilman Bandon could send, or Kelly could send something to me that I could forward to Ottawa, since they're right on our campus. They might have a big, I don't know how big the interest would be, but I think they would have an interest. And I know they have some young folks that are interested in that type of education. So is there something I could send to them, or get you a contact so that you could contact them?
Vice Mayor Klein, we would be happy to put that together and send it over. As far as I know, we do not have an existing relationship with Ottawa, so that's great.
Okay, I do. So we'll get you guys together.
Wonderful.
Great, thank you. And then I see Councilmember Henchy's hand.
Yes, I just have a question. Is there a conversation in the work group around like pay increases, or like how to make, because I don't know, Kelly and I have talked about this. Like I just I think that's a huge need, and it's a source of burnout for some folks like doing this work. And so just curious.
Yes, we do have information. We did a survey, and we actually had, I think we sent out the survey to about 60 nonprofits, and we received answers back from 41 of those nonprofits. And we were able to come up with the most pressing challenges for the nonprofit. And one was salary and burnout, and also onboarding, not hiring people quickly enough. So what we plan to do after our first video is to make another, or have some kind of information to share at city councils and at other places of employment, so that they can realize that just not onboarding quickly is one of the challenges that people have. You lose good people if you don't do something like that. So we'd like to take our survey results out into the community to let them know what some of the challenges are in keeping our advocates. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on either of the work groups, the teen dating violence or the crisis workforce? Okay. So I see no other hands. Thank you. All right, now we will go on to agenda item 5, which is the Abuse in Later Life Grant Update. And Judy Hector from DES will present for us. Judy, the floor is yours.
Hi. Okay, thank you. So I do have some updates. I just wanted to let everyone know that the law enforcement and prosecutor training are still ongoing and open for registration. So far, we've had about 380 participants, which is exciting. Most of them have been officers, but we have many prosecutors and direct service providers that have completed the trainings. We also, in our CCR, completed a Maricopa County Legal Remedies and Victims Resource Guide for Elder Abuse, and it is available in both the digital format and a PDF. And then we're in the process of creating spiral-bound brochures, pocket cards for law enforcement, and then smaller brochures in both English and Spanish. And once those are completed, we will distribute them to the partners, law enforcement, and to the community. So hopefully in the next couple months, those will be completed.
Okay.
I sent Kelly Williams the PDF, and we also created a QR code for easy access to the digital links. That's something that could be easily displayed. And I'm asking that everybody please share that resource guide out to the community, including the tribal community, if you have any connections. Direct services in Maricopa County have started on October 1st, and victims of late life abuse 50 or above that need a safe place to go can get emergency housing, food, clothing, and incidentals for up to 10 days. We're working with the Area Agency on Aging DOVES program. So Janae is the housing specialist. So I've also sent Kelly that information if anybody would like to reach out for more information. We're excited about that. And then lastly, if you would like more information about the grant or how to join the partnership, please reach out to me, or you can ask Kelly for my contact information. And those are all of my updates. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for Jody on this? Any hands? Okay. Yeah, I see your hand, but you're muted.
These are my jazz hands.
Oh.
So I would definitely appreciate access to the information. I have a large elder community, and I think whatever supplies of your items you can get to me would be great. Having Kelly send it to us, or if you can send us the PDFs, and I can have the city print them up. 90% of my district is over 55, so I want to make sure that that information is available. So whatever you can do, please send it to me.
Yes, I will make sure Kelly has all of the formats.
Perfect.
Madam Chair and Vice Mayor, we will be following up today's meeting with those materials. We have the email ready to go. We were going to also include the contact information for our speakers today.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, if there are no further questions or discussion on this, then we have Rahab's daughter's Ricky Harrell here to present. Ricky, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Is there any, oh, we got a presentation.
There you go.
Awesome. All righty. Well, thank you very much for your time. I'm Ricky Harrell with Rahab's Daughters. Rahab's is an organization that's been around since 2013. And the focus of Rahab's is obviously human trafficking, very specifically the sex traffic industry. If you can go into the next slide, please. Really the agenda over the next couple of minutes is just to introduce Rahab's Daughters, what our solution is, and making the impact in Phoenix. Rahab's is actually the brainchild, if you can hit the next slide, of Sam. We call her Sam, Sharmila Wajid Kumar. She's the founder, and she's also a trafficking survivor as well. She was trafficked when she was in college. Our whole goal around this is to be committed to education, outreach, and action. And whatever that action is, it could be rescuing somebody, it could be collaborating with the community to try to get people out who we know that might have an Airbnb that is continuously running these kinds of activities in and out of it. It might be partnering with law enforcement to do a sting of some sort. So the action is very big, and we can't do that without donor generosity. Obviously, people with passion who bring a lot of talent and skill to what we do. And I'll get into kind of what we do and how our solution is of that. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into providing full wraparound services to our survivors that come out of a human trafficking experience of some sort. Next slide. So our solution is really based on 4 critical factors that we think are super important in order to find somebody and locate, but also get them to the point of independence, which is the ultimate goal. So if you can hit the next slide. The 4 that we have is prevention. That's obviously a big thing, is just getting the community involved, getting the community aware of how these tactics, techniques, and procedures are utilized in a community, all the way through rescue, rehabilitation, reintegration, and then more education. And that is really twofold. Next slide. So from a prevention standpoint, we have several programs that we utilize for the community. One of our outreach programs is just essentially getting out on the streets, getting everybody informed of what that is. In Phoenix specifically, we're hitting the zone pretty hard, the homelessness population or those experiencing homelessness. We're starting to hit the outreaches of that. We do a pretty big, hefty outreach effort in any major sporting events because we know that that also brings in a large amount of trafficking operations as well. We are currently gearing up for the Waste Management Golf Tour as well as the Super Bowl. And so all of that is a on the ground set of outreach that educates in that side of it from a prevention standpoint. We also have a series of curriculum that is also available. Our Be Brave program is a program that's strictly dedicated to girls, usually the ages of 6 to 18. And we work with schools, we work with other outreach program, churches, communities to provide this 6-hour training. The training is merely just around the tactics that are used to target somebody, maybe from an online perspective, maybe from in school. It could even also be from somebody's church community group of some sort or a community group that they're going to. So we have this program that's set up to dedicate that. We also do a little bit of some self-defense training just to get them aware of things. And we also provide them with some initial immediate escape opportunities or experiences that allow them to understand what it's like to be tied up and how to get out of that and how simple some of these restraints might be. So it's an active approach on a wide variety of different ways. You know, to date, we're looking at a little over 2,000 people last year that we trained inside of some of our prevention training as well. Next slide. We also do a lot with what we consider to be potential victims. Our term is survivor. We always put a positive set on that piece. A lot of times how our prevention programs happen with this is we hit the college campuses really hard. We hit the junior colleges really hard to also educate on what type of target opportunities could happen. You know, sometimes in some cases, it could be as easy as someone organizing what we call a trap house, which is could be a vacation rental of some sort that's being set over the weekend. It's being set up over the weekend and they're recruiting college folks to come in and participate in those things. So we do a lot of outreach in that sense. We go on the ground at some of the campuses that we work with. We provide some of the seminars that are in place to really just bring to light what it is now to be trafficked. And the tactics are constantly changing. Next slide. So this kind of brings me into the rescue piece. With Rehabs, we have a very unique way of creating our targets. Sam is a data intelligence and business intelligence expert, and she is like my superhero. She's like 4'2", and she just has the brain of a genius. She knows everything in terms of creating algorithms and understanding how to go about attacking these. So the data that we get from survivors in terms of how they were trafficked, now that data gets put into an algorithm around a particular county or around a particular target of operation, and it allows us to pull off the dark web and even off of regular websites like Craigslist or OfferUp or any of these other things that are selling things. We're able to extract the codes and identify very specifically. We create personas around that, and we start to utilize our outreach teams to get in there and really try to influence as best as we possibly can to get them out as much as we possibly can in that sense. We have technology that reaches out to cell phones. We have technology that reaches out to other potential people. If we extract somebody out of an experience, we can utilize the contacts in their phone to then try to target as much as we can or send out outreach messages to continue to go from there. In 2022, we had 23,000 plus messages that were going back and forth in terms of just an effort of trying to recover as many as we possibly can. Next slide. We also maintain a 24/7 call center. This is done strictly by volunteers. If people go to the website, they can very quickly hit the number and it will call into a hotline. It's 24/7. So somebody trained, somebody who knows how to deal and has the voice to be able to work with survivors can very quickly get access to that. Usually we can spin up, if we have volunteers in a particular city like Phoenix, we can spin up a recovery effort very quick within a couple of hours. Currently right now, we're trying to work with Ollie and his team that are out on the street outreach in terms of the homelessness population out in there to work in creating some standard procedures that if they are out on the street and they come across a survivor, they could reach out to us and we can spin up within probably an hour and a half to 2 hours to get down there, get them, hopefully get them into a safe house and then down the road into some kind of placement. In 2022, our efforts were 119, both women and children. The youngest was 7 months old. The oldest was 55 years old. So the trafficking effort is all ages, all types of people. And it's a big shock when you get to see those kinds of ages and how easy it is to get into or be groomed to either provide somebody and sell off somebody, or they're being trafficked in that sense. Next slide. Once we recover folks, we have a very quick reactive rehabilitation program. They very much go right into dream planning. We utilize the Arizona matrix for that. That really helps us across all of our chapters. It really helps us stay in line and communicate, what needs to take place in terms of goals and things like that. The program is custom. It's real life transformation. Although we are a faith-based organization, the success of getting somebody rehabilitated and reintegrated is primary. So if religion isn't their thing, that's totally fine. If we don't have any kind of selection around anything like that, there's no mandates or anything along those lines. Our entire goal is to get people out and get them rehabilitated as best as we can. We make links, so when they do come in, if they don't have documents or if they don't have things that will get them reintegrated very easy, we work on that first. And then we start working through a lot of the different other goals and aspirations that they may have. In 2022, we had 17 that graduated from high school and community college, which was super awesome in that sense. Next slide. We kind of already covered this. Like I said, the main goal for this is just primarily independence, getting them recovered, getting them out of the industry, getting them stable enough where they can stand on their feet and begin to have the independence that they really want and desire. A lot of our chapters that we have, we're across 4 different states right now. We're in Florida, Michigan, Illinois, Arizona, and we have California standing up. We also are able to move people through those different chapters and the infrastructure that's developed inside of those chapters. Next slide. From an education standpoint, we also have corporate education, or we have a curricular program that's really set to enable hospitals, corporations, businesses, and households that are utilizing a lot of business in and out of a particular neighborhood to really just look out for signs, educate folks on what kind of operation and how do they target certain things, what to look for if somebody comes in from a hospital standpoint and maybe they're brought in by their trafficker, how to handle those particular situations. Right now, we're working down in the zone for people that are taking intake, and the questions that are being asked around have they ever traded sex or have they ever traded anything for goods. We've created a 1-page document that can help kind of outline even a little bit further to help qualify that out a little bit better, in hopes that we can try to recover them and get them out of whatever the situation might be. Next slide. So making an impact in Phoenix, and Sam is very dead set and deep seeding into Phoenix. We think that it's a critical city. One, because the I-10 corridor is a major trafficking effort, not in just the sex trade industry, but it's also a big effort in labor. Traveling sales comes up and down I-17 all the time and across the I-10 corridor. So our whole focus is to try to disrupt the I-10 corridor as best as we can. One case study that we have is that we had somebody who we identified in Tucson in a trap house. They reached out to us when they're in San Diego. They traveled and came up for air in Phoenix. They did the same thing in El Paso, and we finally were able to track down and recover them all the way over in Tampa, Florida. So this effort is moving across, and that was within a span of about 2 weeks. Our partnered outreach is big. We are partnered with the Dream Center, CC's Hope Center, a lot of the other folks that have reintegrated treatments that are in place. And the idea is for us to continue to partner as best as we possibly can across the board. Finding folks is like a needle in a haystack a lot of times, and it takes everybody and takes the community to go after this. Next slide. So I just want to thank you all for your time. That's the introduction for Rehabs, and maybe open the floor for some questions if you have any, and I'm more than happy to help.
Thank you very much, Ricky. Do we have any questions for Mr. Haro? This is a huge topic, and it touches on a lot of communities and families. Anyone with questions, raise your hand, please. I don't see anything. I do have a question just to start with. Mr. Harrell, I imagine that young teens are quite at risk for the trafficking. Is that what you are finding in your work with this?
Yes. So right now things are starting to change just a little bit. They are still a high risk category in terms of age group. But what we're looking at is we're finding that the traffickers are even getting a little smarter in the sense that if they can get a willing participant, above the age of 18, it's very difficult to try to get law enforcement involved or any of these other things that might be in play, just because they are willing. It is a greater risk, right? When you have a person of younger age who goes missing, the resources that are available to try to recover that person almost goes right into action versus someone who might be 18 to 24, who is still ID'd as a potential target. The grooming process for that becomes a willing participant versus someone who might be unwilling. But the age group in terms of teens, we are seeing that. We do have a case here in Arizona that we were working on just last month where somebody who looked very much like a 16, 17-year-old was right around the age of 20, 22, was infiltrated into a community church group, a youth group, and was trying to actively recruit folks out of the youth group during a Wednesday or Thursday group setting. So they are very much still a high risk target.
All right. And then also, how about with the homeless? Are you finding homeless are more at risk with the trafficking? Is there any difference?
Here in Phoenix, there is, and that's what we're beginning to learn is some of the initial data. We started putting a geofence in the Maricopa County for a technology platform about 3 months ago. And what we're finding is places like Craigslist and OfferUp, things that are free that you can go into, there is a whole entire coded system around, those that are homeless and really specifically targeting those. So that is still a case. I mean, it's obvious that if there is an opportunity to make money or there is an opportunity to get resources, that is something that is somewhat attractive or could be forced and coerced into making the trade.
Wow. All right. Thank you. Yes, Councilmember Hodge, you have a question?
Yes, I do. On my other capacity, I'm on governing board for Tempe Union. And I was wondering, is there anything that you can present to, because we have our women's days coming up for our schools at the beginning of the year, and it'd be a good topic for our kids to the groups can have that as a topic. And I'm just wondering, is there any way that I can get in contact with you or someone to maybe bring that as a topic in the school districts on Women's Day?
Most definitely. My email is richard@rehabsdaughters.org. And we can easily come out and do a presentation or at least provide you with materials if that's the better way to go as well.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, we will be sharing all of the contact information from our speakers today with our follow-up email after the meeting.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments on this topic? Okay, I don't see any other hands. Thank you, Mr. Harrell, very much for the presentation. And I know with what's coming up, you have a lot of work, and I know our police departments are probably, are you getting a lot of involvement with the police departments working with Rehab's daughter? Because I know that is one of the things that they're looking at, trying to prepare with the Super Bowl. And then you mentioned the golf tournament coming up.
Yes, ma'am. We have a big operation planning that we've been working with, and we're actually meeting with the FBI here in a couple of days to kind of go over And, you know, how do we best incorporate, how do we make sure that our efforts aren't interrupting other entities and efforts as well, and just trying to make sure that everybody's in the same boat.
Right. All right. Thank you. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. And if we have no other questions on that topic, let's go to the next one, which is agenda item 7. We have a presentation by Foster 360 with Summer Knight and Elena Steinbase. And there they have it. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having us today. And it was great to hear from you, Ricky, and what you guys are doing. And as we talk about what we're doing, it definitely, as you said, we're all a community, and we're all in this together, and we're all working with the same young adults. Some of you guys asked for numbers. And so we work with Aging Out Foster Youth is what we do. We're a program first that has housing. In Arizona, there's about 900 young adults that age out of the foster system each year. So they turn 18. Within 2 years, 50% of those young adults will be homeless. And so another stat is out of the homelessness, those young adults who are homeless, about 19 to 40% of those young adults will be faced with sex trafficking, which is horrendous and a high number, way too high. Here's some other numbers, but what I'm going to say is I've been in this for 6 to 7 years. It's been the same numbers, right? It's the same numbers of those young adults going homeless, and it hasn't changed. We have so many programs out there with workforces and federal money and college funding. And I got to be part of some of those programs. And it was really tough because we would, you know, we had so much passion and we wanted to help these young adults, but we would see them come to us, and the young adults who are in the foster system or who aged out, they just wouldn't do well. So they would get a job, but they wouldn't keep a job, right? They would start school, but it wouldn't go well. And again, we are always in emergency mode because each young adult that ages out of foster system, they're a day away from an emergency. They don't have any network of family to help bail them out. I'm going to say one little story. So helping young adults who are going to college, trying to do everything to make a better life. And right, you can imagine it's not an easy time. They get sick, they can't work for a week. Now they can't pay rent. They're out of a home and there's nothing that they can do. They just have no network. And it's as simple as that. That's just one little story. But for me and Summer, my co-director, it's just how do we help these young adults? Because we have all these things, all these resources, and again, we're not seeing the change that we want to see. And so we really came into the whole trauma-informed work, which is a sexy word. We're all trauma-informed, it is, right? It's so great. And we should all be trauma-informed, and just knowing what that means. But what do you do with that? How do you help people? So trauma affects our brains in a way that we're always in a flight or fight mode, which is really great if a bear is running after you, or I was an athlete. So if you're in a boxing match, right, it's great to be in fight or flight. In everyday life, it does not serve you. Everyone who has faced foster care has faced trauma. So we see a lot of these young adults, right? And so knowing that it affects their brains and they're not doing well in school, they're not doing well with work, they're not doing well with relationships is exactly what they're supposed to be doing with the way that their brain is working. Okay, so what do you do with that? And that's where I'm going to have Summer talk, because she's really been a godsend in every way and has built curriculum around this. If you want to go ahead and start, Summer.
Thanks. So one thing we want to talk about too, because as we're speaking in front of you guys as a committee, is obviously with domestic violence, what does that mean for this population? And so one thing that we have noticed in the work that we do, and then I'll share more about the work that we do, is that we have found a link between age out foster care and brain injuries. And where that comes from is domestic violence. So currently we have 10 residents. 8 of our 10 residents are currently have been identified, diagnosed, and are now receiving treatment for brain injuries due to domestic violence. And so this is a huge issue in the aged out foster care population, is that most of the kids, we know we don't like blanket statements. Elena and I always say that one blanket statement we can give is that everyone who's gone through foster care has experienced some form of trauma. The second thing is, it's not a blanket statement, but we could say that there's a high correspondence with brain injury due to domestic violence that they experienced in the home. And so the work that we do is really wrapped around trauma. We don't do any of the brain injury work. We work closely with Barrow Neurological Institute, and they have a grant under domestic violence grant that provides all the therapies for free when an individual, regardless of their age, it doesn't, and they don't have to just be age out foster, is that if they've experienced domestic violence and they come through the program, they can get therapies. Because what they found is a lot of link in homelessness in general. A couple of years ago, the percentage, and it may have changed, but 50% of homeless individuals, there was a linkage to brain injury and domestic violence. So as you know, this is already a huge issue in the homeless population and what that does to people, right? So we work solely around the trauma, and then we help with wraparound services and doing all those other things. And we work closely with the community to provide the needs that each individual needs for the wholeness of that individual, which is why we address the brain injury. We're not doing that work, but we have close partnerships to address that, because as we talk about age out foster care, or we talk about any of these topics, it's a whole person. They're not just their sex trafficking, they're not just their age out foster, they're not just their brain injury, right? And so how do we as a program do what we're good at while making sure they have those wraparound services? And Ricky, you said it so beautifully in your presentation, it takes the community, right, to really do the work for these individuals the way that they best deserve. So a lot of what we do, like I said before, and what Elena shared, is we do trauma work. What's most helpful is for us to share our outcomes so that you can kind of see why this really is working and why we find that this is helpful with these young adults. When every young adult enters our program, we do a generalized anxiety disorder test. And all of them, every single person, scores severe anxiety. Within 1 to 3 months, they then score mild to none. And that is without medication intervention. We are not a program that's against medication intervention, but what we try to do is get somebody calm and get their nervous system regulated and really work on that self-regulation, nervous system calming, vagus nerve healing to really see where we're at. Because what research shows around trauma is that a lot of these secondary comorbidities, so these other things we see, ADHD, not always, but a lot of them have to do with trauma. And when you get the mind and the body calm and you get people out of survival mode, you actually see a lot of those tendencies go to the wayside. And so within 1 to 3 months, our kids are no longer, they have mild to none. Panic attacks have decreased or gone away completely because they now have the tools to use them. Individuals who report sleep paralysis, same thing within 3 months, they are no longer experiencing sleep paralysis. Suicidal ideation is down. And then we're able to move people into, within the 3 to 5 month mark, move people into secondary school and things like that. And get jobs that are more jobs that they're going to keep. We have kids that come in and they quit jobs every 6 months because of their trauma. And we had a kid recently who told us, I only stay at a job for about 6 months to 9 months because somebody told me that will still look good on my resume. And we asked them, well, why do you quit your job? Well, I just don't like something. And that's really their trauma. And so a lot of the work we do is healing, just getting them to a place of a regulated state. We work on creating new neural pathways. And that beautiful thing, like Elena said, is with trauma, it can be reversed. And we can change these behaviors. And we can really, our hope as a program is to not just break the cycle of homelessness, but to break the generational cycle so that when these kids have kids, they're not doing the same things and their kids aren't ending up in foster care. Because like Elena pointed out as well, these numbers have been the same for years and they're not changing. And what we have found is this all goes back to trauma. We can put people into school, we can put them into work, we can put them into a home, but why aren't they keeping it? We had one of the stories we like to share is we had a kid come to us and he actually was on the streets, came to our program, and he would have, his anxiety was so high that his lips would turn purple and he could barely speak. And we worked with him for 3 months. And what we do too is we try to do a rest period, which is if we're able to not have them work or do anything. So their whole focus is just creating safety, trust, and a regulated nervous system. We got him through 3 months. His anxiety went down. He was no longer not able to speak when he talked to people. We put him through his GED. He passed his GED in a month. And that's very unheard of. He is exceptionally bright. But before that, he wouldn't have been able to do any of those things. And people to the world's view would have probably said that they didn't think he could do it. He can't pay attention. He can barely speak. And all that pointed back to is their trauma. And now he has passed his GED within a month. He's in an internship with AmeriCorps, and he's looking to do a certificate, whether either in being a mechanic or being an electrician. And those are things that this kid could not do 6 months ago. We had a girl come to us who was extremely violent. She grew up in a violent home, tons of domestic violence, where she was told that how you handle a situation is through violence, to the point that if she had any issues in her home at school, her dad would physically harm her every day until he found out that she took care of it through violence at the school with whoever she had an issue with. And so this kid was kicked out of every single shelter in the Valley. We were kind of her last stop, which our program is really there for individuals who want to work on trauma. And so we worked with her for 5 months. And within the entire time she was with us, she didn't have one physical outburst. And what she said to us as a program is she said, I had no idea this woman was inside of me all along. And so what we do know is that the trauma changes people and creates people to have behaviors that look wrong to the world. And what we're trying to do is let people work through that through capacity building and strength building to say, these are the behaviors your body is telling you to do, but here's a way through that. And here's how we can change those behaviors. And so we're really proud of the work we're doing. It's not easy. You know, none of the work any of us do on this screen is easy, but through the work of trauma and addressing the trauma and the wholeness of a person, we're seeing outcomes that really Elena and I say are little miracles every day. And is there anything else you want to add, Elena?
Yeah, you said it, Summer, but I'd like to say it again. You guys all understand trauma and how it affects your brain, and the most beautiful part of it, and this is what I love, the most beautiful part is it can change. You can create neural pathways, and that's beautiful. And so we hold on to that. Our biggest goal is for these young adults who come to us and they are homeless when they come to us is to never be homeless again. And so we know that means helping them with their trauma. And then once that's done, and also any brain injuries, which is a huge part of our population, but we still do all the wraparound services. And it's really exciting because once we've worked on their trauma and they're in a better place with their nervous system, they're like a different person and they can excel in education and work. And we do all the life skills. And we're just lucky. Again, we've had a difficult day just today with our young adults, but we are so lucky because we really do get to see little miracles constantly with these young people. And I know you guys are all here for the same reason, but we want change. We're in here for real change. There is a need for emergency housing, absolutely, but that is not what we are. We are here to change these young adults who they deserve, right? They're all survivors. They have survived things that no one should ever have to go through, but we are helping them to thrive. And I know you guys are all in it for the same reasons. And we are really seeing that this could be the change that not only helps them, but helps their children, helps their communities, because they become the beacon of light. And so we're just really happy and we're so excited to be able to share that with you guys.
Wow, thank you so much. That's a lot of information. And, with this being Domestic Violence Awareness Month, one of the things I think we all are realizing is that the trauma, so oftentimes it begins in childhood. And so I'm glad to see the work you're doing. Are there any questions for Elena or Summer? If there are, please raise your hand.
Madam Chair, this is Councilmember Christine Ellis. I'm trying to find where my hand is to raise it, and I can't. But would you take my
Yes.
questions right now? My goodness, this is such, I don't know where to begin with those two presentations that we just received, but this last one got me to the core in the sense that as a psych nurse, this is what I have been saying for years upon years upon years. And finally, somebody is listening and they are doing the work. I have been working on Madison and 12th Avenue for 22 years in that corner, right across from Cass, helping these kids and the people that are down there. And it's all stemmed from the trauma. I kept telling them, people are tripart. We keep trying to feed them, we keep trying to house them, but we forget about their mind, their soul, and their spirit. And this trauma work that Miss Elena and Miss Summers have just described, if there is one thing I believe from my core that's going to help us to make a dent in this epidemic, this is it. And so I am so impressed and so grateful that you ladies are doing this work. And if there is anything I can do, I mean, I don't even have to ask questions because I know what you're doing. I know the work. I know where it's going, and I know the results you're gonna see because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. So if there's anything I can do, whether through this board or individually or through the city of Chandler, please don't hesitate. Miss Kelly, if you could give these ladies my information, I will really appreciate it, because finally, now there is someone I can partner with to get something done.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Ellis. Does anyone else have any question or comment that they would like to offer in regard to this? I don't see any hands raised. I do have a couple of questions for you. First, how many young people are you able to serve at Foster 360?
Sure, and that's a great question. Now that we have housing, we actually have 10 young adults, so we're at capacity. We are finding out this month if we get another, we're in Phoenix currently, but we find out if we get another location in Mesa through their council this month. And so that should be about another 10 we'd be able to serve. Do we hope to grow? Absolutely. But we know that we have to be sustainable because we don't want to open places just to shut them. And that comes down to funding. But right now we have 10, and hopefully within a year, we'll be able to serve 20.
Okay, thank you. And then you mentioned that you have barrels working with you, partnering with you to provide free services to the victims who have suffered brain injury as a result of the domestic violence, the physical violence. Are there other, do you know, are there other organizations that they're doing that for? How did you get that going with them? I think it's tremendous that they're doing that.
So I used to work at Barrow. That was my other life career. And I worked specifically in brain injury. So Elena and I, you know, when her and I worked really closely, because we started to notice once we got people calm, we were like, something's still not working here. And part of trauma-informed care, and we do coaching, we don't ask the details, right? So we may never know somebody's story. So all we can do is pay attention to behaviors. And through that, we were like, from the work I had done, Elena and I were really working at it, like, I think maybe there could be, you know, brain injury in this. Because I worked in outpatient brain injury and had the relationship with Barrow, I knew this was available. It is available. We could easily connect you to Dr. Zeman. This is a grant that is for individuals. It started out in homelessness in general. They work with lots of shelters, but they definitely, I know, want to help as many people as they can, because this is a huge, when we talk about chronically homeless and what keeps people homeless, trauma is a component, but also brain injury for those that have it, that goes, you know, without treatment. So Kelly, I can definitely make an introduction for you with Dr. Zeman, and then you guys go from there. But it's definitely a more well-kept secret than probably they would want to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it is. It's not anything I've heard of. And one of the things that we've all heard, we've seen, and people will comment with homelessness, with homeless young people, and as they get older too, of the talk about the mental health. Well, obviously, some of that is not just from the trauma, the PTSD, the emotional trauma, but from the impact that has had upon their brain and their cognitive thinking and their mental well-being. So that's tremendous. I'm very impressed. I thank you so much for presenting to us. And again, it all comes back to the core of all of these situations, the homeless young people, the brain injuries. It comes down to the domestic violence, and that often happens even when they're young children, and if not treated. And so I'm so thankful, because that is what is at the heart of your program, and thankful that Barrels is also getting in there. This is something we need to let more people know about, and more need to mirror what you're doing. Does anyone else have any? Okay, Councilmember Sanders, your hand is up.
Yes, Rachel Sanders from the city of Buckeye. I'm wondering, because your program seems somewhat unique, wondering, are you guys, do you guys have a study involved? You know, are you doing research so that, I mean, because it sounds like you're getting pretty good outcome as far as quote unquote legitimizing the program and then replicating it, you know?
We've talked with Barrow actually to start doing that. And then that is why Summer and myself, we knew that there had to be different outcomes that we had a scale for, and that anxiety, the GAD is a great scale. So we are starting that. Foster 360 has been around for a little over 5 years. We're under the umbrella Macy United Way. But housing, we're coming up on 2 years, but we are starting. Summer said it beautifully before, and we'll keep saying it. The work that we do, we are with aging out foster youth, but the work that we do with the trauma work and the brain injury is really across the board. Resources are going to be different for different populations of people, but trauma and the brain injury is going to go across for everyone. We would love to share any of the information or what we're doing with anyone who wants to have it. And Buckeye, I actually live in Buckeye. I'm in Buckeye right now, so yay. So that's a great question, and we definitely are starting and would be happy to share whatever we can with you.
Thank you so very much. And Councilmember Lefevre.
Just a quick note from you both. I'm involved in a project. I know Colorado's currently looking at creating a pilot program to try and help screen victims of violent crime for traumatic brain injuries. So they're going through a process right now about what that program and process would look like. But if and when that gets up to speed, that may be something that would be interesting to take a look at to see, you know, it seems like you're seeing the same linkages that they're identifying up there, that so many folks that are involved in domestic violence are also experiencing brain injury as part of that process. So if I get more information, I'll certainly share it with the council.
We'd love that. I know right now there's numbers out there, like 50% of people who experience homelessness have a traumatic brain injury. There's actually nothing that we can find, or there's very little on foster. And so if we could start doing those type of numbers, it would dramatically not only help the young adults and the children, because right, if they got help as children in foster, what a different life they would have, not only for them, but the families also taking care of them. So if we could help start those type of studies, I mean, it would just be great to be part of that.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And Councilmember Henchy?
Yeah, I just and Summer, you may remember this. I could have swore there was like a 3-person unit at Barrow, and like they had a social worker and then a nurse, and then was that you? Was that you?
I worked, I mean, I definitely helped with this program and things like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if I was involved in stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm just, because Barrow does have a DV unit, that they specifically, when it started getting going, they were talking to domestic violence shelters about advocates reaching out to Barrow, to this like 3-person unit, about survivors that were coming in with TBIs and stuff. And so it's not just homeless shelters that they reached out to at the time for this, but it was also the DV shelters. So, but it's been a long time since we've had those conversations, and I'm wondering if it's time for us to like reach back out and have that conversation with DV shelters and Barrow again, as things have moved and after COVID and remembering. And so I appreciate this presentation. So thank you.
Yeah. And something I wanted to say to you, to Andrew, when you were talking about that pilot in Colorado, one thing that's very interesting on how we screen that we did not share is there's probably a way to do it for emergent. If you're part of a program, we actually wait to screen because we want to get the nervous system calm. We want to see if maybe just trauma's involved, first, just from that piece. Plus, building trust allows us to it's called a help screen, is the screen that we use, and it's from Barrow. There's things that they wouldn't be willing, the individuals, to answer to us if they weren't in a calm, trusting state. And so we're finding that every person we've screened, when they've been seen by the doctor, is confirmed with a brain injury. If we were to ask in the beginning, and again, I'm sure there's a way to do it for emergent care, it's just not what we do. We do it through a program at someone who's going to stay with you for a while, right? If we were to ask in the beginning, we'd probably be told no on a lot of stuff because there's no trust there.
If you ladies wouldn't mind sharing your contact info, I'll put you in touch with the 2 researchers from the University of Denver that have been doing a lot of research on traumatic brain injury and criminal justice involvement.
Fantastic. Wow. All right. That's a heavy topic, very, very appropriate, and one that I do think needs more attention to it. So thank you so very much, Summer and Elena, for presenting. And I think, we'll probably be hearing more from you and seeing what, we can do to help your program as well. Fantastic. If there are no further questions, I don't see any more hands up.
Madam Chair, may I add one comment?
Yes.
One thing that Summer and Elena did not mention is they do have a regular supply drive list that's helpful for the children who are in their program, and we will also share that with the Regional Domestic Violence Council as well. I know many of you have donation drives and other events this time of year leading into the holidays as well, and it might be a good way to, again, connect with this community.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll appreciate that, and I'm sure we'll all participate. Thank you so much, ladies. Wow. Okay. So we have talked briefly, we have commented in regard to domestic violence victims and survivors, the undocumented population. And I know in talking with our victim advocate here locally, one of the populations she said that is the most unreported is among the undocumented victims of domestic violence. So we have attorney Linda Frere with DBT Immigrante. I don't know if I pronounced it right, Immigrante, here to give us a discussion on options for victims of domestic violence. And she does have a screen to share with us. Linda, you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, it's yours. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am not able to share my screen. Okay, there it goes. Perfect. So I am an attorney, immigration attorney. I have my firm here in El Mirage, and due to my past experience focusing on victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and I have done a lot of work when it came to trafficking, I focused on immigration when I became an attorney. And some of the strongest cases I have been able to help and I have been surrounded by domestic violence. And at this point, I will be presenting on VAWA and U-Visa, which are 2 options that are available to victims of domestic violence. And that I think maybe they're not as, out there as we all should know. Sometimes they're kind of hidden. And as Anita said as well, we unfortunately many individuals that are being a victim of this violence, that are undocumented, prefer not to report it to the police because they're afraid and often threatened with, you call the police, then ICE is going to come to your home and detain you and deport you. So that's something that I often see as well. So if you please go to the next slide. So the agenda today is going to be very simple. It's what is VAWA, VAWA case examples, what is U-Visa, U-Visa case examples, questions and answers. We'll go to the next one, please. So I will be speaking in detail about these two options. Next slide, please. Perfect. So what is VAWA? So VAWA is a it's a passage. It's called the Violence Against Women Act of 1994 that was passed by Congress to help victims of abuse, in part because nobody was reporting the crime. And these are specific victims of abuse. The difference between this and U-Visa, because we often get that confused, or some people think, okay, I qualify for U-Visa, do I qualify for VAWA? One of them is because for VAWA, you have to be a victim of abuse by either a U.S. citizen or legal permanent resident. And U-Visa, the person status doesn't matter. If he or she is abusing you, it doesn't matter whether they're documented or undocumented, documented or undocumented. So who qualifies? So for VAWA, we call VAWA self-petitioning spouse or child. In this case, we have the person who's been victim of abuse by either a legal permanent resident spouse or U.S. citizen spouse. They have to be legally married. They have to have or married in good faith, which means is because of love. They didn't marry for the wrong reasons. And there has to have been abuse. And the abuse described under VAWA is that they have to have been battered by or have been the subject of extreme cruelty. So one thing that I often see confusion about is, if I wasn't physically assaulted, is that do I qualify for VAWA? Is that actually abuse? And actually it is. And I have had cases where the person has been abused, whether it's financially, mentally, verbally. They are extremely afraid of the person who's abusing them, and they don't report it to the police. Many times it can be also cultural because you want to keep those things at home. Sometimes it's fear of being receiving a harsher consequence from the abuser, or being deported by immigration. And but one thing that we do also have to differentiate from VAWA to U-Visa is that for VAWA, we do not require an actual police report to have been filed. So if the person is trying to leave the situation which they're in, we are not requiring they actually report it to the police. There's other methods that we could use to help them in their case, which could be the declaration. It could be sending them to get an evaluation of the situation they have been through, how it has impacted them, pictures, text messages, recordings. I have obtained so much different evidence that we try to work with whatever the person has, because when you're in an abusive relationship, you often don't have the ability to be saving all these messages, as your phone is often broken, or saving any type of evidence that will prove that you've been abused. And not only that, but we also have to make sure that the abuse occurred and that the person who was abusing you had the legal status necessary. So we have that the person could have been abused, like I said earlier, by a legal permanent resident spouse or U.S. citizen spouse, could be abused by a U.S. citizen parent or legal permanent resident parent. And also the parent could have been abused by their child, and the child must be a U.S. citizen. Therefore, those are the classifications within that. If they have been abused by these individuals in that status, and they've been abused within battered or subject to extreme cruelty, and whether it is a relationship by marriage and they have to prove good faith marriage, within that is the qualification for these type of individuals seeking to obtain a benefit through VAWA. Now, does my criminal background affect my case? And that's often that's a very common question. My criminal background and my immigration record or background, that is extremely common. But when it comes to VAWA, at least what I do is that when I'm evaluating their case, I'm going to ask as many questions as I can to really get that clear story of what's going on with them, exactly of their past, anytime, how many times they came into the United States illegally, whether they're detained at the border, whether they're detained here because of a situation. Sometimes I have seen myself, individuals that were victimized, and another manner of being victimized is if they do not speak English, only speak Spanish, or they speak dialect, the abuser will at points call the police will arrive, and the abuser will give his or her side of the story, while the other actual victim in this case isn't aware of what's going on, is scared, and often won't talk. So then now they're being seen as they're being the abuser. So that's something I had to work with in some of my clients, that unfortunately that will look negative for this type of case, but we just have to, show evidence and showing how this is also part of the abuse they've been affected, or the abuse that they've been receiving. So does it hurt? It does hurt. Some of, like, for example, VAWA, you might be able to apply for legal permanency through adjustment of status, and that is where it's really gonna hurt you, your criminal background and your immigration record, to see if you're eligible through adjustment of status, or whether you're gonna have to leave the country to obtain a legal status. But applying for VAWA itself will allow you to remain here, obtain a work permit, a social security, will allow you to obtain certain public benefits available that is not going to hurt you later on when you're trying to adjust your actual status. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to provide some examples. I had a case where one of my clients was being abused by his spouse. And one of the common threats was, if you argue with me, if you leave the house, if you don't do this or that, I'm going to call the police. I'm going to call immigration. They're going to come and pick you up and deport you. And my client was extremely afraid of the situation. We ended up, it's kind of like, it had to be like we had to do a strategic move for him, because it was a very concerning situation. We had to file order of protection, serve the order of protection, get my client to be escorted out of his house with his belongings, so we could prevent any allegation of abuse towards spouse, because that's something we often see. Once my client was removed from home, he moved to a different location. He was continuously being stalked as well at his new property, or his new home, his work, and even to a point where I was having the spouse coming to my office and seeking information and just causing problems that we had to deal with. So it did get into a situation that was very complicated. And then there was a call to immigration done by the spouse saying, you know what, he's here illegal. He only married me for papers, for his benefit. He is abusive, and all these sorts of information. But one thing that we did, fortunately, my client listened, was that I needed him to save all text messages, to save any recordings that he had of the abuse. And that was able to prove that he wasn't the abuser itself, especially because he was in a male role, and we often see sometimes that does have a cause or an effect on the situation. So that was one of the cases that I had that took approximately a year to deal with the whole situation step by step, and to really plan everything to plan everything accordingly, and to also make sure that he had a safety plan, and that there wasn't going to be any other issue with that going forward. And thankfully, now this person is here legally, and they're no longer being a victim of that abuse. So I would like to go to the next slide, please. The next slide is U visa and who qualifies. So for U visa, it's a person who's been the victim of a crime, and I will be posting the crimes further up. You have to be a victim of a qualified crime. You have to have cooperated with the police. That means you have to, have called the police. And when they ask if you want to press charges, they must say yes, they wish to aid in prosecution. They also requires that we need to get a certification signed by the police department. and that they have suffered or they've been victim of abuse or suffered extremely. And one of the things that I find in these cases more challenging is the fact that unfortunately, it's very difficult at times to obtain a signed certification by the police department. In fact, immigration law does not require the police department to sign the certification. So in many instances, we have received at times emails or correspondence saying, I'm just not going to sign it. And it's very sad to see that, as well as sometimes we do find there's a confusion. I had a case where a U visa, the person was a minor who was being sexually or molested by an adult, and the police were called, there were charges pressed, and the whole case went through, and there was sentencing, but the certification was never signed because the abuse wasn't considered sexual or abusive sexual contact, because the minor wasn't raped, wasn't sexually assaulted, which was very concerning for myself as an attorney, because it is listed in the regulation. So I think that's one of the greatest concerns I would have. But criminal background and immigration record, U visa is taking approximately 6 to 7 years before you actually get an approval. And last year, we did receive a new, I guess, resolution where they're able to get a work permit in the meantime that the U visa is actually approved. That's supposed to come right after you do fingerprints. Unfortunately, I have had some clients who have done fingerprints, and it's been over, close to a year now, and they haven't received that work permit. Eventually, when the U visa gets, once they get approved, then they have that for 3 years, and they could continue on to becoming a legal permanent resident. Within the U visa processing or case, one thing that I can say is that they're able to submit certain waivers that will allow them or forgive them for illegal entry, or if they have been involved in a criminal activity such as a DUI, maybe I would say something with drugs, or disorderly conduct, at times even certain thefts, but it has to be very minimal. So that does come with a special waiver. And as you move forward with BAWA or U visa, you're not required to have a sponsor that says, I'm going to support you. You have that provision within that allows you to continue without having to need that. You can go to the next slide, please. I did share an example of a case. So here are the possible criminal activities or which the person could have been victim of that will constitute a U visa, or should constitute a signature for the certification that must be sent out first. At times, if the certification doesn't get signed with the police department, then I will reach out to the prosecutor and see if they're willing to sign it. And if they're not willing to sign it, then we'll have to reach out to the judge and see if they're willing to sign it. Unfortunately, some of these cases sometimes police will be involved, but they will be unable to locate the other person. They will be unable to locate the person or the aggressor, so then it just never moves on to the prosecution. So I only have limited possibilities to be able to get this case going. Unless the certification is signed, we're not able to move forward. Next slide, please. And I provided a couple of examples, but one of the examples I had was an individual who was being abused for over 17 years by their living boyfriend, and the police were called. They're very afraid. It was called, she called the police when she was stabbed multiple times, because that was, I do it now, I won't be able to possibly do it later, call the police later. And she was pulled from that situation. She reached out to me, we're able to move through the whole process. And now she does have her work permit, and she's able to move to a different state. And for U visa, as with BAWA, you're able to include children. So if they have undocumented children underage, you're able to include them with you in that package, let's say, so they could eventually also get a legal permanent residency card in the future. Next slide, please. So this is all for my slide. I hope I provided enough information. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you, Linda. I have a question, and we had Mr. Harrell present earlier on the Rehab's daughter, and that was about the sex trafficking. You said it can take 6 to 7 years for them to get approval of the U visa, but what are these victims supposed to do? For instance, I have an understanding that in the sex trafficking, many of the victims of that are undocumented, also of labor trafficking. So if they learn that there is a way that they can report the crime, because if they don't report the crime, it continues and it continues. But if they report and it takes 6 to 7 years for them to get the U visa, what are they doing in that time frame? What kind of protection do they have?
So if I do have a client that is dealing with labor trafficking, human trafficking, I will usually not go to a U visa. I will go toward a T visa, which is a trafficking visa. And those prior to COVID were taking approximately about a year and a half. It was a lot faster. They were getting the work permit a lot faster. At times, there is situations, especially with labor trafficking, where labor trafficking kind of gets into the maybe a violation of their of employment law. So then when that kind of gets into the gray area, then I will still try to see if it's still we could fit it into T visa. If not, then I will still do U visa if there is an actual police report. Unfortunately, there's always that gray area. I have had when it comes to U visa and with labor trafficking, a lot of cases and scenarios in the field workers, even here near to us. And I've been dealing with that situation, and I have responded and been in contact with the FBI to try and figure out situations on how to help these individuals get something in the meantime. But the fastest or what I would do is I often try to get them that work permit. So then once they get the work permit, they'll get a Social Security and they'll be able to be here legally, and then get them to either receive help in a different state where they're not known by the community here, and move forward with that. Unfortunately, for U visa, there's not much we could do out there. U visa, it takes really long time, but it's the only one that really provides you a waiver of for certain criminal acts or immigration issues. So that's one of the positive things of U visa, but it is taking very long. And unfortunately, with COVID, it made it worse. And prior to COVID, it was still several years because they have a cap at that you can only process so many visas throughout the year. And when that cap is reached, you have to wait until the new year opens, and then they start processing them again.
All right, thank you. Does anybody have any other questions for Linda on this topic? Okay, no, I don't see any hands raised. Okay, thank you, Linda, very much for presenting. And we will now hear from Kelly with an update on this year's Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Anita, I'm so sorry. I wanted to ask, I'll just let you know one thing. I did recently open up a legal clinic here in Surprise. So we did partner with Minister Justice. So if you have any, if you know anyone that needs legal counsel, we have a clinic here within Surprise. It's a complete Spanish speaking legal clinic. And as well, so there's several attorneys that will volunteer to provide consultations or advice for their cases.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. All right, thank you. Okay, Kelly, are you ready for the update? Thank you.
I am, Madam Chair and members of the council. Thank you very much. I'll keep this brief for the time that we have remaining. As you all know, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The council is honoring this, and MAG is honoring this in a variety of ways. I just wanted to run these by you. We are still collecting calendar events. So if your city or your organization is hosting an event this month and you have not submitted that to MAG, we would love to get that information from you and include it on our calendar. The calendar is regularly used by the media during the month for motivation for your submissions. We have received about 25 different events already, which is great. We will make sure that you get a copy of that calendar in its current state as well when we do our roundup email after this meeting. And I did also want to mention that we are going to bring a proclamation to declare October Domestic Violence Awareness Month to both the Management Committee meeting and the Regional Council meeting later in October. And although it is not on your agenda today, I would appreciate a vote if you approve of us moving forward with that proclamation recommendation to both the management and the regional council meeting. And I did also want to mention one other thing before you call a vote, Madam Chair. We are focused on emotional abuse this year, which is a specific carve out of domestic violence work. Emotional abuse, according to the officials at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, affects about 50% of Americans, if not more. The statistics on emotional abuse are actually really difficult because most people don't realize they're being emotionally abused and or don't know how to report it. So there is some interesting resources on the MAG Domestic Violence website. We would encourage you to review, to disseminate to your communities as well. And as you bring awareness to this important month, we encourage you to wear purple, to talk about why you're wearing purple as a color that helps bring more attention to domestic violence, and also to send us your photos. We know that many of you have purple lightings throughout the month, whether it's the tower in Gilbert, Mayor Peterson, or the fountain in Fountain Hills, Jerry Friedel. We know that many of you do really just great, interesting ways to bring purple and attention to this issue for the month. And we would love to highlight those photos in our social media and on our website as well. So with that, Madam Chair, I would respectfully request a vote to send the proclamation to Management Council and to Regional Council for their approval.
Okay.
Madam Chair, this is Councilmember Ellis. Real quickly, we do have City Hall here. Chandler City Hall is light up in purple the whole month.
That's wonderful. Thank you. All right. I would like to see if I can get a motion from someone for us to do the two proclamations later this month for the Executive Committee and then the Regional Council. Do I have a motion?
This is Ally Klein. I motion.
And I will second that, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion by Vice Mayor Klein for this, and then Councilmember Ellis is a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Okay, thank you. The motion is passed. All right,
thank you, Madam Chair and members of the council. One other thing real quick, I did want to throw a special thanks to Sam Hinchy and all of our collaborators at the Arizona Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence. The coalition does provide excellent resources this time of year. Specifically, they do it year round, but specifically related to Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And we are promoting those through our social media outlets at MAG. So if you're interested and you don't follow us on social media, we are putting out different resources every day. And again, we would love to highlight your events through those social media opportunities as well. With that, I will stop speaking. Thank you again for your support.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, are there any requests by a council member for future agenda items? Councilmember Ellis?
Madam Chair, we have an organization here in Chandler. It's called Janice. It's a shelter that is trying to get up, but they also have a boutique. And the young lady who's in charge of that, she's a survivor, and she was also the person who helped with this last protection order. She was the first one to bring that to the forefront when we start working with that with the governor's office and got that bill passed. And she has been asking me, can she make a presentation to the board as far as what Janice does and where she came from and why she's involved into this. She is currently a member of she has done a lot of work in that area, and she is willing and able to do a presentation. So I don't know if that's something that I needed to connect her with Miss Kelly to get that on our agenda. And she also have an event coming up this month for her to do a fundraiser for the organization in order for her to start getting that. She's well connected with a lot of the council members and mayors in the East Valley. So I wanted to give her that opportunity to speak to the board.
Okay, thank you. How do you spell the name? You said Janice. How is that spelled for the?
Janice.
Just like the word Janice. Okay,
Mhm.
very good. So, so Kelly will reach out with that information. Thank you. And
Thank you. Her name is Miss Shantae. So I will connect with that. Yeah. Thank you.
okay, great. Thank you.
Madam Chair. Thank you so much.
Okay, and then Councilmember Hodge.
Yep, I was gonna say the same thing, similar to what she was talking about with Janice. She also, the gala is November 3rd. Councilmember Ellis, so you can put that in November 3rd. And I have her email too, if you need the email to visit.
Okay.
It's janicewomancenter.com.
Great, thank you very much. Okay.
And we could also give personal information, which is cell phones and things. Miss Kelly, I'll reach out to you. I think she will be a great speaker for us.
Yeah, I agree.
Madam Chair and members of the council, we are in communication with her, and we would be more than happy to organize her as a speaker in the future.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, are there any other suggestions for the next or an upcoming council meeting? Okay. Hearing none. All right. Are there any comments or announcements from membership? Now is your time. And Councilmember Hodge.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you. I just wanted to say that Mayor Corey Woods of Tempe, he did a proclamation for the domestic violence awareness of the month of October. And we'll be reading at the next council meeting.
Okay, wonderful. All right. And Councilmember Lefevre.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if Ms. Bonet, when she was at the August meeting, let you guys know, but we were successful this last legislative cycle of working with the legislature and the governor's office that going forward, we're now going to receive $2 million in ongoing general fund monies every budget year into the victim compensation and assistance program. So that should hopefully help us help more folks through those programs. In addition to that, they also provided $10 million in Rescue Plan Act money into that fund for us to expend over the next 2 years. So excited about having some additional resources available to help our victims communities.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, and Councilmember Vice Mayor Alley. Klein.
Let me remember to unmute. I always have to do that second. So the City of Surprise had their proclamation at this Tuesday's meeting for Domestic Violence Month, and I'll get some pictures for you. We do also light up City Hall for the entire month as part of domestic violence.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing that. And Councilmember Mayor Peterson.
Hi, thank you. As Kelly mentioned, we will be lighting the Gilbert Water Tower on October 20th. And we did do a proclamation at our last council meeting, which was in September, and it was our last meeting before October, and we don't have another one till October 18th. So we wanted to make sure that we got that out. I did do a post on Gilbert AZ Mayor's social media today. Our police department also has special police patches that they've had made up for domestic violence that are their police patches in purple with a purple ribbon on them. And they are selling those at the police department every day and at the Gilbert Farmers Market on Saturday mornings. They're raising funds for domestic violence shelter nonprofits in the region. And I think that's a fun way to be able to get a very special limited edition police patch and be able to give back to an excellent cause at the same time. They will also be out at concerts at the park, which are held under our beautiful water tower every Thursday night for the month of October. So if you're out and about and run into any or at any of those events, please stop by and say hello. They'll also be out at different events during the month of October here in Gilbert too, other Parks and Recs events. So we're trying to do the best that we can to get the word out there.
Very good. Thank you. That's wonderful.
And I wear purple almost every day because it's my color. So, but I don't have it on right now.
Okay, that's wonderful. Okay, and I see Councilmember Ellis, your hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also wanted to bring up the fact that we did do a proclamation also for that month of awareness. And then the other thing is that our commission had a big breakfast event here in Chandler. It was well attended. And I think our main focus was on veteran this year. And it was amazing to the speakers that we have, what's happening in our forces, armed forces concerning violence and mental violence and emotional violence and physical violence. And we were able to get a gentleman that sits on our veteran commission to be one of the speakers. And then another young lady, I know that they brought her from somewhere else, also concerning have been affected by violence while her husband and herself was on the base itself. It is something to really be reckoned with, to hear how those who are serving us are going through such hardship while they are still serving, and these things are happening and we are not aware of them. Just wanted to send a great kudos to our commission for doing this great work, and they bring in a lot of awareness here in Chandler, and we're working together with them. As I told Ms. Sam, that if there's anything, I believe that as a team for us, as an organization, as a board, if there's anything that they need, we will always be there. And then she knows also Chandler, the mayor and council, is always ready to help and lay a hand. So everybody was in attendance, so it was a great event. I want to say thank you again.
All right, great, thank you. And Council Member Sherry Loretano.
Yes, I want to let y'all know that our mayor, Mary Pizzillo, also did our proclamation on Monday's meeting, and we have lit our brand new city hall in purple. So we'll send you all a picture.
Thank you very much. Okay, and then Councilmember Peterson, is your hand up again? No, it's still okay. It's left over. Okay, and I wanted to mention we did a proclamation on domestic violence awareness this last Tuesday. Had our police chief do it, and then our city has been lit up in purple and will remain that way through the month of October. And then also we are doing a virtual presentation on domestic violence awareness October via Zoom, October 19th to the community. And we have a representative from ACES that will be presenting New Life Center, as well as our victim advocate. We did one a couple of weeks ago on suicide prevention, and it was very well attended and well received. And so I'm looking forward to everything that we can do to help end domestic violence in our community and bring awareness and education, information. Power is in information. So thank you. Any other comments?
Madam
No?
Chair?
Yes.
I would also just like to recommend for perhaps our December meeting, if you and maybe Laura Guild with DES would be able to discuss the conference that you both attended last week and just what you got out of it, the ACES Pinal County Domestic Violence Conference. I was able to attend the first part of it, and it was really meaningful. And I think others could learn from what you learned.
Definitely. I would very much like that. It was packed with a lot of really important information, and it'd be great to share it. So Laura, you ready for that?
Well, I'd like to say, as a participant, I would recommend that Sam be involved in this presentation too, because she was the force behind the entire event. So
I agree.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks.
Okay, right? Yes. Okay, we will do that. So thank you very much. If there are no other comments, okay, then thank you very much. I hope you all have a great weekend, and we will be adjourned. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you all. We appreciate you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for allowing me to present today.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.